Chapter 9, To Russia with Love. What did you study in college? That's a question I've been asked, genuinely, by aspiring comedians and sarcastically by my parents. The answer? The history and literature of Russia and Britain, which really just means I read a bunch of books and learned that Stalin was maybe not a great guy after all. My love for Russia started in high school when I took a senior elective called Great European Novels, and 3 of them were Russian: Anna Karenina, Crime and Punishment, and Nin by Vladimir Nabokov. Anna Karenina was rough because I violently procrastinated, as is my style in all aspects of life, and I had to read the entire 864-page book in 3 days. There have been studies that show that cramming can work in the short run, but doesn't help you retain information in the long run. This might explain why I cannot tell you a single plot point from Anna Karenina, or name a single character outside of Anna Karenina. If she is not actually in the book, that wouldn't surprise me either. The other 2 books were among my favorites of all time and made me want to learn a lot more about Russian literature. So when I arrived at college, I abandoned my state major, economics, and instead chose Russian books, aka the opposite of economics. For context, jobs available in the field of economics include all jobs. Jobs available in the field of Russian literature include writing Russian literature, teaching Russian literature, and being an extremely well-read homeless gentleman. This major also required me to learn the Russian language and write a 52-page thesis entitled Double Cross, the double as delusion in Nabokov's early novels, The Eye in Despair. Not to be confused with my junior essay, Double Team, how the 1997 film starring Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dennis Rodman was in no way connected to Vladimir Nabokov. Why is the title of every college paper disgusting? There's always a pun, then a colon, then a string of nonsense phrases like literary hyperconsciousness and Freudian postcolonialism. Read more about it in my essay, Over the Overkill, Deconstructing the Constructing of Phraseological Masturbation in College Term Papers. Writing a thesis is a long, mostly unpleasant process, but initially I wanted to make it even harder. I thought, maybe as part of my thesis, I should translate a short story from Russian to English that's never been translated before. That's an extremely difficult task, even for a native Russian speaker, let alone a kid from Staten Island who just learned how to say apple in Russian. For some reason, my teacher encouraged this and helped me get a grant from the department to go live in Russia for the summer with the goal of translating a short story. For any Russia head reading this, it was a short story called Lower World Tambourine by one of my favorite contemporary Russian authors, Viktor Pelevin. I highly recommend his book, Oman-Ra, available in English, about a fake expedition to the moon by astronauts who don't know it's fake. It's very Russian funny. My parents, understandably, were a little nervous about me spending the summer alone in Russia. But you can't say no to a grant. It's free money. Not actually enough to live on, but it's free. And I reassured my parents that it would be okay because a Russian woman who worked at her school had set me up with her parents in St. Petersburg, who would rent me their extra bedroom for the very reasonable price of all my grant money. They also requested that I bring teddy bears wearing Harvard t-shirts as a gift, which I'm hoping was a means of transporting drugs, because otherwise I don't know what the hell was going on with that. Who sees a teddy bear and thinks, pretty cute and all, but where'd it go to college? What this Russian woman failed to mention was that her parents were turning 90 years old and didn't speak a word of English. I'm not sure they spoke a word of Russian either, because I didn't speak a word in any language the entire time. I arrived alone in St. Petersburg with no directions, only an address. This was before Google Maps or whatever they use in Russia. Gulag Maps? And found my way in halting Russian to their apartment. They opened the door, nodded at me, took me to my room, nodded at the bedroom, showed me the bathroom, nodded at the bathroom, and then disappeared for 3 days. They had a Soviet-era apartment, and from the looks of it, I'm guessing they weren't higher-ups in the Communist Party. I was honestly afraid to turn the lights on because the light switch hummed when you touched it, It was like the electricity was whispering, "I'll kill you." When my host family was actually around, they never once invited me to join them for a meal, or offered advice on where to go, or said anything like, "Hi, my name is insert name here." And the closest I got to sharing a meal was when I went to the kitchen every morning to make breakfast. Make breakfast is a glorified way of saying, I poured some kind of animal's milk over a bowl of off-brand Russian Lucky Charms where the cartoon leprechaun was threatening children with a switchblade. And the old woman was already sitting there just staring at the clock. Sorry, running out the clock. She then got up, went to the fridge, and took out the largest carton of sour cream I've ever seen in my life. Costco would have been jealous. She sat across from me at the table, opened the carton, and started spooning sour cream into her mouth like it was chicken noodle soup. Do you want me to stop? Why are you covering your ears?
Sounds terrible.
Oh. She sat across from me at the table, opened the carton, and started spooning sour cream into her mouth like it was chicken noodle soup. The sound of an elderly woman slurping sour cream at 8 in the morning was seared in my brain forever, along with the visual of the sour cream remnant stuck in her very healthy mustache. After that, I was cool fasting until lunch. I later spoke to other friends who lived abroad and discovered this was not the norm. They all said things like, "Oh my God, my host family is like my real family now. Oh my God, they fed me the most delicious food every night and we sang songs together by the fireplace. Oh my God, they legally adopted me and they're paying off my college debts. Plus, I can name anyone and they'll have them killed." A real slap in the face after my experience with the couple I came to describe as sour cream and onion. I had a careful plan laid out for my time in St. Petersburg. I would get to the library by 9 a.m. every morning, translate a few lines of the short story, and then I'd have the afternoons free to save the many cultural opportunities in the city. Very quickly, I started skipping the library part of the plan and focused instead on aimlessly wandering the city in a lonely depression. I visited locations such as an abandoned amusement park, an abandoned zoo, a patch of darkness under a bridge, a staircase that led into a river, and of course, the Museum of Death. And this was in the summer, by the way, when there were almost 24 hours of daylight and warm weather. This was Russia at its least depressing. But I was alone and literally had no one to talk to, except a street performer who tricked me into holding his pet bear and then demanded 200 rubles for the photo. I had no money to eat at restaurants, and no one to eat with anyway. I would go down to the grocery store every couple of days and buy some kind of pasta that was made from a grain that had been discontinued in the United States. Then I would buy these weird chunks of cheese. No brand or type, just general cheese. It had the consistency of Gouda and the flavor of wet baking soda. Sometimes it was shaped into triangles, sometimes into rectangles, depending on the cow's mood. I went so stir-crazy at one point that I wrote a parody of a poem by Alexander Pushkin in Russian. The original poem begins, "Ya vas lubel," which is "I loved you," and mine opened with, "Ya vas kupel," "I bought you," and was a very tender sonnet to a prostitute. So that's where I was at mentally. After weeks of descending into madness, I thought, I gotta meet someone, anyone. Now, before I left America, my friends from high school said, "Dude, you're gonna meet so many Russian women. Think about Russian mail-order brides. You're gonna meet them without even having to put them in the mail first." But the thing about Russian brides is, they're looking for a better life. If they saw me walking around St. Petersburg, I guarantee they weren't thinking, "That's my ticket out of there." They were thinking, "That poor Estonian boy needs a mom." I did finally meet a girl, though. Actually, a group of girls. They were visiting from Spain and didn't speak a word of Russian, so I communicated with them via my high school Spanish. They became my closest friends in St. Petersburg, by which I mean we hung out 3 times. It would have been more had I not humiliated myself on the 3rd quote-unquote date. I met them at a bar and one of them said, "Hey, Kolya," this is my name in Russian, and I guess Spanish, "do you like absinthe?" I had never tried absinthe before, so naturally I said, "Oh yeah, love absinthe, probably my favorite drink." 5 tall glasses of absinthe later, we were all dancing by the bar when I said, "Could you excuse me for a second? Necesito ir al baño. Solo un momento?" I went to the bathroom and immediately threw up all over the walls. Didn't even come close to the toilet. Like a 360-degree fire hose of vomit. Then, because I was out of my damn mind, I just walked back to the dance floor and started dancing again like nothing had happened. Woo! Nosotros nunca vamos a morir. Roughly 30 seconds later, an employee came up to me and said, "Excuse me, did you just vomit all over our bathroom?" To which I said, no hablo inglés. These wonderful, kind women saw that I was profusely sweating and even paler than usual, and knew that I was not well. They smoothed the whole thing over with the manager and helped me clean up the bathroom, which is an extremely generous gesture to a guy they met a week before. I was now shivering and starting to see Jost, so one of the women offered to take me home and even put her coat over me to keep me warm in the taxi. Fun fact about St. Petersburg. At some point in the middle of the night, all the bridges go up for about an hour. So whichever part of the city you're in, you can't leave. This poor girl and I sat in a Russian taxi for 45 minutes waiting for the bridge to reopen so she could take me back to the Sour Cream Museum. When we finally arrived at 3 a.m., I took off her coat to give it back to her. But she saw how gross and sick I looked and said, maybe just keep it? Weirdly, we never spoke again. I was so sick I didn't leave my bed for 3 days. Even my elderly landlords peeked in and nodded at me sadly as if to ask, "Are you okay? We're not going to do anything about it either way, but we thought we should ask." As soon as I recovered, I decided that I needed to go back to America immediately. I had never and still haven't felt that homesick in my life. I flew home 2 days later with 0.0% of the short story translated. As far as I can tell from a 10-second Google search, it remains untranslated, ready for the next brazen college senior to sacrifice joy and health for the sake of Russian literature. Before I left for the airport, I laid out 7 teddy bears and Harvard t-shirts on the bed, as requested, along with a note in Russian that said, "Thank you for everything. I'll truly never forget our breakfast together. Sincerely, Kolia."